Hi, I, 45F, am writing this post today to seek advice on a situation that happened with my daughter, Chloe, 19F. The problem is pretty messy, so I'll begin with some background to make things clear. I had my daughter Chloe when I was 26, with my then husband, we'll call him Stan. Stan and I had met in college and got married when we graduated. He belonged to a business family who was comfortable, to say the least. His mother was a cancer victim and had passed when he was young, with his dad raising him all alone. My father-in-law, Mark, 65, had always treated me like his own daughter and even stood up for me in front of his own family at times. So after I had Chloe, things got bad between me and Stan, with him barely staying home. When Chloe was 3, we were on the verge of getting divorced, but Mark put us into marriage counseling, and we were able to make it work. But things had changed drastically, feeling fake and like a pretend version of who we were. The time before the divorce had also affected Chloe a lot, so Stan and I decided to be civil to each other and make our marriage work for our daughter. Chloe grew up in a house with a full set of parents who loved her a lot but didn't love each other. Stan was handling his family business, and I was working as a graphic designer, both contributing to the household so that Chloe would never feel a day of financial adversity, and she turned out to be a good child, making things work for herself. By the time Chloe turned 17, my and Stan's arrangement had hit a rough patch, with him revealing his affair of 5 years with his secretary. That woman had been with us for almost 10 years, and her backstabbing felt like a betrayal from family. It stirred up a lot of drama at our house, with Mark almost kicking Stan out of his will over his reckless behavior. I decided from that day on to separate from Stan and finally file for a divorce because I was too tired to continue the charade. Chloe didn't say anything but surely felt the brunt of it because she was the one who had to shift homes every weekend, living mostly with her dad and his side piece. After all, his house was closer to the school. I tried to do whatever I could to make it easy for her, from providing her with the best of everything to making sure I wasn't having fights whenever I saw Stan. By the final year of high school, Chloe had decided to get into the family business just like her father and grandfather, and Mark had secretly told me that he was planning on opening a new company under Chloe's name and handing it over to her after she graduated from college. She had worked extremely hard all that school year and was able to get into a decent business school. She wasn't able to get any scholarship or financial aid and was expecting us to pay, which I was willing to do as a parent by giving half the tuition, with Stan giving the other half. During this time, Stan's side piece had announced her pregnancy. I had started saving up, and after gathering funds from my other savings, I was able to collect the 50%. An incident happened during her final year, which led to us having some distance. So, as I mentioned, I had paid extra attention to being there for Chloe after my and Stan's separation. Chloe plays excellent piano and had a talent show for the seniors. It was on a weekday, so both Stan and I had decided to attend. On the day of the event, I got stuck at work due to some reason and called Stan to ask if he was there at Chloe's recital. He told me that he was also with his girlfriend at the hospital because the doctor's visit had taken longer than expected and thought it was okay because I was there. I panicked at the thought and called Mark to ask if he could go to the recital, but he didn't answer his phone as well. Both Stan and I rushed out of our situation as fast as we could and reached by the end of the show. Chloe had won but had no one from her family there, so we found her heading home on her own. When she saw us, she quietly got in the car, and we tried to ask her about it, to which she replied pretty rudely, which was fair. When I was about to drop her and Stan at his house, she made a remark about how it was okay for him to be late because he was looking after the mother of his child, whereas I prioritized work over my child. I was very hurt by this but didn't say anything because I knew this was coming from a place of hurt. I told her I would make it up to her and took her to lunch at her favorite place that weekend, but I don't think things were the same between us after that. After her finals, Chloe came to my house for a long vacation, as my husband's mistress was pregnant and needed more room. One afternoon at lunch, Chloe asked me if I was going to pay for her college so that she could provide me with a detailed list of the expenses. I told her that I was going to pay half the tuition, considering her father was also going to contribute a share. She said that with a new child coming into his family, it was kind of obvious that he wasn't going to pay such a huge amount. I was a little stressed at this and told Chloe that I didn't have that kind of money and that it wasn't fair of Stan to practically throw away his first child just because another one was on the way. She replied that she was okay with her dad not being able to pay and had no grudges against him or his girlfriend, and practically begged me to find a way to help her pay, or she would have to get a student loan. I suggested that the loan was a good idea because we actually lacked funds, but she got upset and left. I think she was expecting me to pay for it all instead of having her take a loan. I thought I should give her the space she needed and didn't initiate a conversation with her for the rest of the day. The next whole morning, Chloe was missing, so I called her and got to know that she was out with a friend and would be home soon. She came back around lunchtime and was looking very excited when she approached me. I asked her the reason for her happiness, and she proceeded to place this necklace on my table. The necklace she placed was a blue sapphire necklace that belonged to my late mother. We weren't rich or even comfortable back when I was a child, and this pretty expensive necklace, which had been passed down in our family since my great-great-grandma, was considered a lucky charm. I asked Chloe where she found the necklace, and she told me it was in the attic with my mom's other stuff. She said she got the necklace checked by a friend and realized it was valued a lot. She continued that now I could pay her college fees in full by selling this necklace. I was taken aback by her statement because this was something passed on to me and had been in my family for generations, and it felt weird that my own daughter, who was going to inherit this in the future, wanted me to sell it when it wasn't even necessary. I looked at Chloe and how excited she was, but I decided to break her excitement by telling her that there was no way I was going to sell this family heirloom, as it was sentimental. She came up with the argument about it being of no use if it couldn't help her as she was family, but I very sternly said no to her and wished for no further discussion on this. She got upset and went to her room, and when I went to check in on her, she was packing her bags to stay with her dad. I tried to convince her that it wasn't as big of a deal and that we could find a way out, but she straight up said no and left. Chloe's graduation day was approaching, and I obviously was expecting an invite to her school, but what I received was an invite for the after-party organized at Stan's house. I thought it must have been a mistake and texted Chloe, but she said that the school allowed only one parent, and she was going to take her father, which I very half-heartedly accepted. Later on graduation day, I was hurt by Chloe's Instagram post, in which she had pictures of her graduation ceremony with Stan and his mistress. I decided to just get through with the day and not make it about myself. The graduation party was very normal, like nothing had happened. Mark did come to console me about Chloe not taking me to her graduation ceremony, but I brushed it off as me being sick and unable to attend. When it was time for the speech, Chloe took center stage and began thanking everyone. She was going on about how her to-be stepmother was a lucky charm and the reason for her success. She kept going on about Stan and his new family, and I thought I would be mentioned somewhere, but the speech ended with nothing about me. I was heartbroken by this, and Mark could see on my face how dejected I was. He immediately went to Chloe to talk to her and left within a few minutes after what looked like a heated argument from afar. Chloe then came to me and asked if we could talk privately, and we both went to her room. I thought she wanted to apologize for everything, but she began screaming and blaming me for ruining her special day because her grandpa Mark had confronted her about not crediting me for her success, and when she told him how he shouldn't interfere when he didn't know the whole story, he replied that he did know everything and stormed out. She kept calling me a tattletale for ratting her out to Mark and spoiling her relationship with him. I told her it wasn't me who told him about our conversation, but she wasn't willing to listen and asked me to leave as soon as I could. I was devastated by it all and left after getting myself together. Later that night, I got a call from Chloe, crying and asking me to come to Stan's house as soon as possible. I got a little tense and drove to his house immediately. I went in and saw Stan, his side piece, and Mark sitting on the couch with Chloe standing by the side, in tears. I asked what was going on and got to know that it was Stan who had called Mark the day Chloe went to his house after her fight with me, asking him for either some money for her college or asking him to convince me to pay the full price. Mark got angry at Stan for using me just because he didn't wish to pay for his own daughter and shut him up. Since that day, those two weren't on talking terms, and after Chloe didn't take my name and gave a stupid justification for that, Mark was pushed over the edge and told Chloe something she didn't wish to hear. But first, he asked me to tell him the truth about what had happened between me and Chloe. I told him everything, and he was as appalled as I was at the thought of selling a family heirloom when it wasn't necessary. He then got up and proceeded to berate Chloe for treating me like this, and then took out the papers of the company he had planned for Chloe, which was going to be her graduation gift. He told Chloe about it and went ahead to tear it in front of everyone, saying that he was wrong in his judgment of Chloe being a good kid and that there was no way he was going to spoil her with a silver spoon anymore. Everyone was shocked at this, and Chloe began crying hysterically, begging Mark not to be so harsh with her. Mark then turned to me and asked me not to give Chloe the money I had saved for her college, as she needed a reality check after being such an entitled brat, and left without listening to anyone. Chloe then began begging me to convince Mark to give her back the future company, while Stan and his side piece kept blaming me for causing this mess. Everything was too much to take for me, so I told Chloe I would think about it and left to go back to my home. It is now the next morning, and my phone is bombarded with texts from Stan and Chloe, asking me to talk to Mark and make things right. I am pretty stressed and am thinking of calling Mark for dinner tonight to discuss the issue but still don't feel it was my fault. So, am I the a-hole for not selling my family heirloom for my daughter's college money and maybe ruining her future? Update 1. Hi. First I would like to answer some questions asked regarding the original post. Why couldn't Mark pay for Chloe's education? Even though Mark is a rich person, he still believes that people should work and earn their position, so he wasn't willing to pay for Chloe's education per se, but was fine with giving her the company after she had a degree. Stan wasn't as rich as his dad but was comfortable as I mentioned, but he was saving his money for his new child and family. About the relationship between Chloe and her future stepmother, Stan's girlfriend, I don't like Stan's side piece because she had done wrong to me, but she has always been nice and kind to Chloe, so far. Chloe didn't like her early on when Stan and I had decided to divorce, but over the last few years, both had bonded over a dysfunctional childhood with separated parents and had developed a mature step-parent-child relationship. I didn't realize how far the extent of their relationship was until now. Coming back to the actual update, so at the dinner, I talked to Mark about whatever had gone down and whether such a huge punishment of him not giving Chloe the company as well as me not paying for her was fair. Mark made it very clear that there was no way Chloe would have appreciated any of it, and it showed in her behavior at her party. He was disappointed because not only was she acting like she deserved it all, but also didn't even show a tiny bit of intention to make it on her own. He made me realize that I was free to give her the money I had saved for her but shouldn't expect the same from him, and should not complain in the future just in case Chloe chose to abandon me for her new family. Mark assured me that it wasn't my fault and left. After he left, I called Chloe and let her know that her grandpa wasn't willing to give her a role in the company unless she made something of herself. She freaked out hearing this and began cursing me, yet again blaming me for everything that went wrong. It got so out of hand that Stan had to snatch the phone from her to make her stop. The behavior on this phone has now led to me rethinking my decision to pay half of her college. I got to hear from Mark the next day that he was yet again involved in a huge argument with Stan, who was blaming both Mark and me for making Chloe miserable and treating her so unfairly. Mark, being the bold man he is, reminded Stan that he could pay for his daughter as well, but was the real abandoner in the situation. Mark made sure to remind him that he was still a part of the company that Mark headed, and could be fired if his stupid blame games didn't stop. Stan shut up pretty quickly after this and barely defended Chloe. Even his mistress tried to convince Mark under the guise of how family should be treated, but Mark asked her to pay for Chloe instead, which she instantly refused to do because she wasn't as well off. I did try to call Chloe after our last chat to check if she was okay, but apparently, I have been blocked from calls and on all social media, so now I think it makes sense that I don't pay for her college anymore. Update 2. So, it has been a week since the last update, and things have been quiet. I still do feel guilty about not helping my own daughter with her education but also realize that giving in to her demands would just mean enabling that behavior, so I'm still pretty stuck on not helping her financially. This update is about what happened after. As mentioned before, Chloe was in shambles knowing that she would have to take a student loan and was most probably not going to be a part of the family business. I hear that Stan's girlfriend has been her rock during all this, and as much as I don't like that girl, I'm relieved by the fact that Chloe has someone for emotional support. Mark, after a few days, was also pretty bummed about losing his stepdaughter over money and decided life was too short to hold grudges. He still wasn't going to help her financially or in any way, but wanted to have a talk with her to explain what went wrong and how to fix things for the future with him and me. Chloe agreed to meet him, and they met for lunch, but it didn't go as planned. They talked for a while, and things were going smoothly until Mark asked Chloe about why she didn't invite me to her graduation ceremony. Chloe, at this point, in an attempt to persuade her grandpa, made up a whole story about how she had begged me to pay half her tuition and asked about the necklace to make things easy on me, but I instead abused her for being so entitled. She said that after all that, she still invited me to graduation, but I decided to decline the invitation and now was acting like the victim in the situation. Mark is a smart man. He listened to her but decided to cross-check with me later, which is why I know this story. When Mark asked me about declining the invitation, I broke down thinking how far Chloe had gone just to berate me. I told him the truth and also showed him the chats, which Chloe must have forgotten about before lying, making it extremely clear that I wasn't invited to her graduation deliberately. Mark was extremely disappointed at this point and called Chloe to let her know that they wouldn't be having a relationship from now on until she stopped her habit of being deceitful. I also decided to text her from Mark's number that I wanted to be in no contact with an ungrateful child like her. I did get a few texts from Stan's girlfriend calling me names for abandoning my own daughter and ruining her relationship with her family, but I simply blocked her because I know she isn't worth my time. Update 3. I didn't think things would escalate to this level, and I would have to write an update this soon. So after Chloe's conversation with Mark, she realized that the only way to get sympathy in this situation was to come up with a false narrative and spread it. So she used her TikTok account and posted a few videos about how I was a toxic mom, manipulating a lot of situations that had happened since her childhood, making me the villain. She also went as far as to say inappropriate things about my relationship with Mark. I am not on such new social media, so I got wind of the situation from a colleague of mine who was following my daughter. All the limits were crossed at this point, so I decided to inform Mark about it and wrote an email to Stan, his girlfriend, and Chloe, stating that if they don't remove the video as soon as possible, I would sue them for defamation. My colleague assured me that I had nothing to worry about because the post barely had any views. Mark, upon realizing what had gone down, decided to send an email similar to mine to Chloe. Later that evening, I got a call from a distant relative of mine asking me about my situation with Chloe and technically blaming me for not keeping my daughter safe. I asked her how she knew about it, and that's when I got to know that the TikTok had gone viral in our community. I decided to install the app to see what people have been talking about, and my reputation was being torn apart in the comments, with Chloe liking the vile ones. My phone and email were also bombarded with hate messages from some people I knew and some random people. I couldn't believe how vile my own child was and decided to sue her and Stan after all, but not before posting my side of the story. I did post a few videos I made, telling my side of the story with proof, and it garnered a lot more attention than I had expected. People on the internet were now siding with me, and because of all the hate being redirected toward her, Chloe thought it was best to message me, asking me to sort things out in person and remove the posts. I got angry at her assumption that I was going to follow her command and told her to tell Stan to meet me the next day at his father's office. Mark and I had talked during all this and decided that we would be suing Chloe and Stan as her guardian for defamation because we had suffered enough, and all this negative attention was also affecting Mark's business. The next day, Stan showed up with Chloe at Mark's office. Mark had his lawyer beside him and told Stan and Chloe that they were going to sue them both for defamation. Chloe freaked out at the prospect of actually going to court over her petty videos and immediately deleted the TikToks she had posted in hopes of deleting evidence, but when Mark showed her the screen recordings of the videos, she began shedding crocodile tears, asking him not to do this and spoil her future. Stan even tried to guilt-shame me into taking back the case, but I asked him not to interfere now when he didn't stop the fiasco in the first place. Honestly, this has been extremely taxing, and coming from your own child, it's even more devastating. So I have decided to get off social media for some time now and will be reading the comments after I am back from my internet break. Update 4. I am writing this update after a few months, so it's safe to say that this will be the last update because the problem has now been resolved. I would also like to thank everyone who posted advice in the comments. I am grateful for the support. So since the last time, a lot went down, especially with Chloe. Since all of this happened right before a long weekend, we decided to file the case the following Monday. On Saturday, I got a call from Mark, asking me to come to Stan's house immediately. I rushed, and what had happened was nothing short of appalling. So after we had told both Stan and Chloe about the case, they both came back home and got into a heated argument. This led to Stan's girlfriend's health being affected, and she was rushed to the hospital due to shortness of breath. She and the child were safe, and after the checkup, she came back home. Chloe felt guilty for putting her health at risk, so she tried to apologize to her, but instead got into a very nasty fight with her. Stan's girlfriend asked Chloe to give her some space, but Chloe wanted to hear that her apology was accepted and kept bugging Stan's girlfriend. This led to her obviously being extremely annoyed, and things escalated. Before Stan could intervene, the fight got physical, with Chloe pushing Stan's girlfriend in anger, but fortunately, Stan took the fall. On realizing what she had done, Chloe ran to her room crying. She came down a few hours later and was surprised to see us all sitting there. She knew this was about what she had done and immediately apologized to Stan's girlfriend, stating her behavior was inexcusable. Stan at this point spoke and asked Chloe to leave their house as soon as she could, because he still thinks that she is a threat to his pregnant partner and unborn child. Chloe was shocked at this and tried to apologize again, only for Stan's girlfriend to let her know that this was the only option they were giving her. Seeing what Chloe had done, she brought this on herself, but I still found it harsh. Mark offered Chloe to stay with him for the time being, which she accepted because she had no other option. After Chloe left to pack her bag, Stan began crying and asked his dad to take back the case we were planning to file. He mentioned that he didn't wish to get into the legal mess at such a crucial point in his life and would like to dissociate from Chloe if that's the cost of his freedom. When I tell you everyone in the room had their jaws touching the floor, I am not lying. I understand that Chloe wasn't perfect and, to be fair, wasn't even a decent human at this point, but there was no way Stan was doing anyone any favors by going no contact with one of his children for the sake of another who wasn't even born yet. Both Mark and I looked at each other in shock and expected Stan's girlfriend to say something. All she said was that none of it was their fault and she agreed with Stan to the fullest. As I mentioned, as cruel as Chloe was, this was still too petty coming from her father. Mark didn't respond to Stan after this and left with Chloe once she came down, and I followed. The next day, I got an apology message from Mark's number. It was Chloe. She said that her grandpa had told her everything about how her dad wanted to disown her, and that she realized too late that I was the only parent who solely cared about her. I didn't directly forgive her but asked her to take care. That evening, I called Mark, and we both came to the conclusion that the defamation case on Chloe right now wasn't a good idea, as she was already going through a lot and clearly needed help. We decided to let Chloe go on one condition, that she put forth a public apology on all social media platforms for Mark and me, to which she agreed in an instant. In that post, she also declared that she was going no contact with her daughter and his girlfriend. Stan, on realizing that the case had been dropped, tried calling Chloe in hopes of apologizing for mentioning the idea of disowning her, but Chloe, instead of tolerating him, let all her anger out and told him what was what, from him cheating on me to him abandoning her. He had nothing to say after that and knew the relationship was over. Chloe had taken a student loan and had decided to work on everything by herself. She did drop by my house before leaving and profusely apologized for whatever had gone down. I forgave her but also made it clear that our relationship needed a lot of work, so I wished for distance, to which she agreed. As of now, Chloe has found a job near her college campus and is also going to therapy for her mental health issues. I haven't been in touch with her much but plan on inviting her on holidays. Mark also seldom talks to her, whereas Stan and his new family seem to be doing well, although he has mentioned to his dad that he regrets cutting his daughter off on bad terms.